kind of take that as a compliment that I'm woke. I'll tell you how I feel about it. If woke means I can't get behind Trump, which is what I think it means, or that I support people who want to be transgender, or I'm for the vaccine, well, dude, call me woke as you fucking want.
The woke fungus strikes again. The woke fungus has claimed another victim. The fungus has not only destroyed a career, it has potentially destroyed the legacy of Howard Stern. You know, this is one of those rare cases where it's kind of disappointing because Howard Stern was a pioneer. This dude was revolutionary. If you weren't around in the 90s and 2000s and even the 1980s, it's hard to understand how influential Howard Stern used to be. He inspired generations of broadcasters. If you ask broadcasters or even content creators who was their inspiration, a lot of them would say Howard Stern, myself included. He fought the federal government. He was the voice of the working man. He was the leading voice in the 90s fighting for free speech over the airwaves. Howard Stern is without a doubt one of, if not the greatest radio broadcaster in the history of this country. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's how he is going to be remembered, because he has spent the last 5 years bruising the caboose of his own legacy. You know, us men, we have a hard time letting go, especially when it comes to letting go of something that we're passionate about, something that defines us, something that gives us purpose. Women, they seem to deal with finality a hell of a lot better than us men do. If you talk to divorced couples, oftentimes the woman is excited about it. She's planning her future, while the man, he can't figure out what the hell happened. The woman checked out of the marriage years ago. She has been emotionally planning for the divorce. The poor dude, he's wasting his time trying to figure out how to solve problems that should have been addressed years ago when he was living in a state of complacency. Men often have a hard time letting go of a marriage. 70% of divorces filed by women. We also have a hard time letting go of our careers. Reason being, our family, our careers, those are two of the things that define us the most. Ric Flair is often described as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. Hulk Hogan, I am a real American. Hulk Hogan was a draw. He was an attraction. But guys like Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, they were excellent performers. Hogan couldn't wrestle for an hour and keep you entertained. Ric Flair, he was wrestling for an hour 7 days a week. Back in 2008, Ric Flair was given a phenomenal storyline involving his own retirement. The storyline went on for months. It culminated at WrestleMania against Shawn Michaels. Two of the greatest performers in the history of the business pretending to fight for the final time. The match ended. Ric Flair was given an emotional send-off the following night on national television. He was supposed to ride off into the sunset with his legacy intact and enjoy retirement. The problem was, Ric Flair was not ready to retire. The retirement angle, it was essentially forced on Ric Flair by Vince McMahon because Ric Flair was too damn old to be wrestling. Vince McMahon didn't want the liability. He didn't want some 60-year-old dude having a heart attack in his ring. Instead of retiring with his legacy intact, Ric Flair decided to keep wrestling. Obviously, he was nowhere near the performer that he was in his prime. Some of the matches were downright embarrassing. Nowadays, he often makes headlines for being an out-of-control drunk. Come on, ladies, take a ride on Space Mountain. Dude, you're 76 years old. No respectable woman wants to take a ride on your wrinkle-dinkle. Ric Flair couldn't let his career go because he had no idea how to separate fantasy from reality. He never learned how to be Richard Flair. He only knows how to be Ric Flair. Same thing with Howard Stern. For decades, his identity has been directly tied to his career. I get it. I understand. But I hope when I reach their age, I don't make the same mistake as Howard Stern and Ric Flair. Now, obviously, I am nowhere near their level, but I hope I don't make the mistake of holding on for too long. Howard Stern is the classic case of the hero staying in the spotlight long enough to become the villain. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel is in the description below. Today on the second channel, going to be talking about Shedeur Sanders being the starter for the Browns' first preseason game. Initially, I was confused by this because 24 hours before he was named the starter, the Browns released their depth chart, and Shedeur Sanders, he was ranked as the worst quarterback in training camp. But then the reason was provided as to why he was starting this weekend. I'll give you the reason and explain why this could be a make or break weekend for Shedeur Sanders. So click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. Headline at the New York Post: Howard Stern future with Sirius XM in doubt as $500 million contract ending. Normally, this wouldn't be cause for concern for the dozens of people who are still listening to Howie. Every 5 years when his contract is expiring, there is a public fight between Howie and Sirius. I want my money. I'm Howie Stern, damn it! But Howie, you're not drawing an audience. No one is listening to you. Who cares? I have been vaccinated so many times they can no longer find a vein. They'll go back and forth for months, and eventually, they'll sign a new contract. Sirius XM will vastly overpay him, and Howie will be happy for a few months until he finds something else to complain about. But this time is different, because this time, Howard Stern no longer has the one thing that he has had his entire career: leverage. And the reason he doesn't have any leverage is because he doesn't have an audience. I want you to think about something. Before last night, when is the last time you heard anything about Howard Stern? This dude used to be a magnet for controversy. The media used to listen to his show just to have something to write about because they knew if they were writing about Howard Stern, people would read it. We are 8 months into 2025. I haven't heard about Howard Stern once. I didn't hear about him last year outside of his softball interviews with John Biden and cackling Cam Harris. Why are we not hearing about Howie? Because no one is listening. During the prime of his career, Howard Stern had 20 million listeners. Even during his early years at Sirius, when the platform was in its infancy, Howard Stern had 3 to 5 million listeners. Me personally, I thought the first 4 years at Sirius was some of his best work. But as soon as Artie Lang left the show instantly declined. Today, Howard Stern has 125,000 listeners. Sirius has 33 million subscribers. 125,000 are listening to Howard Stern. Would you be willing to pay him $100 million a year? Sirius is losing millions of dollars on this dump, and that is the reason the show is going to be canceled. What's going to end up happening? Sirius is going to make Howard Stern an offer based on his market value, which at this point is nothing. They'll offer to pay him in Ethiopian breadcrumbs. He will decline the offer because his ego won't allow him to accept it. And just like that, the Howard Stern Show will be canceled. Almost 50 years in radio, and his show will instantly disappear. The question is, how did we get here? How did Howard Stern go from 20 million to 125,000? Well, Uncle KC, he embraced the woke wiener. The woke fungus destroyed his show. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. But Howie was on the decline before he was baptized and born again by deacons at Woke United Methodist. Now, don't get me wrong. Howie exchanging porn stars for Aunt Fauci definitely had a negative impact, but it is not the only reason for his decline. For years, Howard Stern has made the biggest mistake a broadcaster can make. He took his audience for granted. You got to remember, the show isn't free, hasn't been free in 20 years. People were paying monthly to listen to the Stern Show. What were they getting in return? When he launched with Sirius back in 2006, Howard Stern cut back to 4 days a week, which was fine. The show was longer on satellite radio. There were fewer commercial breaks. The show was uncensored. Going from 5 to 4 days a week, no big deal. Most people didn't have a problem with it. But then he cut back to 3 days a week. Next thing you know, he was taking the entire summer off. He was taking a week off for every major holiday. Labor Day, week off. Columbus Day, Howie spends the week with Greg Popovich where they cry over the evil colonizer. How could he confiscate land from the Guardians? Chris Columbus was no bueno. I'm feeling the guilt of my white privilege. Can you please give me a hug, Gregory? Oh, nice ass. To my knowledge, Howie hasn't returned to the studio since he was terrified of the COVID. To make matters worse, he started embracing the Hollywood elite that he hated for decades. The primary demo for the Stern Show was upper middle class American men. Most were college educated, they had wives and children, they were successful, they made over $100,000 a year. Howard Stern turned his back on them to become besties with Jim Kimmel. As a result, his audience turned their backs on him. This was a slow decline. This isn't something that happened overnight. Howard Stern had a very dedicated fan base. But after years of complaining, after years of preaching and indoctrinating, after years of embracing woke wiener instead of porn stars, Howard Stern lost his audience. Simply put, he became out of touch. The question is, what will his legacy be? To be honest with you, I don't know if Howard Stern will have a legacy. I don't know if he's going to be remembered. Most of these kids and Gen Z LGBT, they've never heard of him. A couple of years ago, he applied his COVID mask and went to a Knicks game, and he cried about it the next day because none of the players knew who in the hell he was. Those of us who do remember, those of us who used to listen every day, most of us are disgusted with what Howard Stern has become. Most are angry, they feel betrayed. So, how will Howard Stern be remembered? How will his legacy be defined? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.